Okay, little disclaimer. This is not a tech review video. This is a tech opinion video. So if you're triggered by opinions, I'll give you 5 seconds. So as you saw in the title, I switched from Android to iPhone, and I basically want to go over 3 things with you. So number 1, the reason why I switched to Android 3 years ago. Number 2, my experience using Android phones for 3 years. And then number 3, me switching back to iPhone and how it's been. Exactly 10 days ago on the 13th, so last Monday, I switched from Android to iOS. I got an iPhone XS. So there's pretty much 3 types, I think, of tech users. There's strictly Apple users, so everything you own is Apple. Like maybe you have Apple Music, maybe you have Apple TV, like pretty much every piece of smart tech you own, except for your fridge, because that's made by Samsung. But your smartphone, you know, your computer, your tablet, whatever, that's all made by Apple. You use the whole ecosystem. That's one type. The second type are mixed types. So maybe you have an Apple-made phone, but you have a PC laptop, or vice versa. Maybe you own everything PC and Google, but you got a pair of AirPods. Anything that's mixed, anything where you've integrated both Apple products and Microsoft or Google products or whatever into your tech life. And then there's the third kind, so strictly pretty much people who don't use Apple products. You just, you got a PC, you got a Google phone. Hopefully you don't have a Windows phone. Exit the video if you have a Windows phone. For me and my family, my mom has always used Apple computers. There's a lot that she does that involves art and creation and all that stuff. She just prefers the interface of Apple. Also, they're better. That too. Like, period, they're better. But she's always had Samsung phones. She's never owned an iPhone. But my dad, like 10 billion other middle-aged men, isn't the best at using technology. Weird. I don't know. But for me, I was like my mom about 10 days ago. I was iOS, I was Apple, everything, this, that. And then I switched to Android. I think Android might for the first time be better than Apple. So I got an S7 along with my mom. The S7 was incredible. It had an amazing camera. It had a cool interface. I love the fact that I had expandable storage. That was great, because Apple to this day still doesn't have expandable storage. But then again, nobody does anymore. Like, wait, who has expandable storage? Wait a second, I'm gonna Google this real quick. Okay, so Samsung is the only one. Samsung, LG, Nokia. Oh, Nokia doesn't count. Who owns Nokia? So Samsung and LG now, as it turns out, are the only ones that still sell expandable storage. But everybody did back then. Everybody who's Android did back then. So that was great, and I used it for 2 years. I literally had no complaints about it. Like, not that I remember. Anyways, I just thought because Samsung has always been the leader in displays. I thought the display was amazing because Apple didn't have OLED yet, but Samsung did. It was fast. It was cool. It was a great size. Everything about it was just like, this is the shit. So it's early 2018, and I've had my Samsung S7 for 2 years, pretty much. In April of 2018, April 23rd, I remember this date, April 23rd. For the past 3 months or so, the Samsung really started to slow down. It just aged like any other Android phone does. It started to glitch, started to delay things, it wasn't as fast, stuff like that. It wasn't able to handle what it could before, because back then it was like shit. I was due for an upgrade. So for the past 3 months, as long as it was out, I had my eyes on the Google Pixel 2 XL, because I always had my eyes on the Pixel. The Pixel was basically Google's answer to the iPhone, if you think about it. Like, Google marries their hardware and their software together. That's kind of incest. But like Apple, they put their hardware and their software together. Of course it's going to be optimized for each other. I thought, wow, this is really interesting, because that's the thing with Android. It's like Google makes the software and then whoever else makes the hardware. So I get a Pixel 2, I still have it right here. And when I got this, man, it was, when I first opened it, look at that. Look at this. This looks really cool. It kind of matches my Windrunner a bit. Shortly after I got my Pixel, I saw this and I thought, wow, that goes with my phone. Because how often do you see clothes and you think, oh, that looks really good with my smartphone? I see this and I'm like, anyways, I'm not trying to get off track, but I get the Pixel 2. It's just crazy. Like, the camera is insane. It's so good. It has a single lens, but it uses Google's AI to get the right HDR to totally optimize the image, so it just looks super crisp, super fresh. Damn! Like, you look at some of these pictures from it and you just think, that's a smartphone camera. I started to notice some things with it in the summer. There was a lot of little things that were wrong with it. When you buy a Pixel 2, I don't know if this is still a thing now with Google, but back then, when you bought a Pixel, you would get a free unlimited subscription to Google Photos, which now I check my Google Photos and it's saying 94% storage used, upgrade. So when I got this, I thought, this is awesome. Like, it doesn't have expandable storage. It has something better. It has Google Photos. So I pretty much don't have to carry any photos on the device, which I thought was awesome. I'm explaining this right. I know this sounds really weird, but you could not, because it didn't like make it a part of Google Photos. It made it like it's only on the device. So much so on the device that you couldn't use, like, okay, here's an example. On Instagram, if you go to a DM conversation, I gotta check my DMs actually. A lot of people are trying to get me. If you go to a DM on Instagram, and if you want to send like 5 photos that you took, whatever, like pretty much any other app, when you want to bring photos into a conversation, you go to that little photo icon. They'll take you to your albums. You select from your albums what pictures you want. With this, say you wanted to get pictures, like you had some old ass pictures in an album, and instead of swiping all the way to the top or bottom or whatever, the grid, you could just go to the album that you created yourself to get them. Okay, but the album that you created doesn't appear in the list of albums. So what's the point of creating an album if you can't access it from anywhere? That leads me to the next thing. Okay, you can't get the photos from Instagram. You have to go into Photos to find the photos and then upload them to Instagram. Okay, we'll do that. So you go get photos from the Photos app, select them, boop, boop, boop. Okay, share, Instagram, and then it says create link. So it tried to be all clever and send a Google Photos link to save data or whatever, instead of just uploading these 5 pictures themselves onto the conversation. I thought that was really annoying. I don't know like what the purpose of that was. You couldn't control it. I just thought it was really frustrating. It had to send a link. It couldn't just send pictures by itself. That was stupid. So another thing, and this was really annoying, in the phone app, the actual phone, the main purpose of this device, the phone app was terrible. When you hang up, the sound it makes when you hang up is this loud beep. I could actually pull it up. You're on a call. This is what the hang up sound is on a Pixel. Imagine that every time you hang up. By the way, that's pretty quiet. Like if you were on speaker, it would play it full blast. It was the most annoying thing. Imagine that. Okay, talk to you later. Bop! Okay, cool, talk to you later. Boop! Literally every time. It was so frustrating and there was no way to turn it off. Now, the most important thing about the phone app was the call quality. When you were using the earpiece, it was still pretty bad, but when you had it on speaker, you could barely understand what the person was saying. It literally sounded like it was underwater. It sounded like it was underwater. It sounded like it was underwater. And it actually was so bad that I thought it was a manufacturer defect, that in the summer I sent it away. Okay, that's a Rolls Royce. Up until that point, I was kind of biased against iPhones. Like I thought Android was the shit. I thought this is what you should use. This is better than everything else. And then I see them trying to copy, not only are they trying to copy, look, they're probably not trying to copy old versions of iOS, but it really looks like it, especially the control center. So another thing was that the home button, they added a new home button. There were these ugly, those ugly Android buttons, the circle and the square and the triangle. Of the Hire is the only logo that can pull those shapes off. So they went from that to this little like oval-y thing, which is a lot like the new home gesture in iPhones. I was surprised by that. Even the multitasking window. Before, the multitasking windows were like this on top of each other, and now they're side by side. Which, I mean, you can configure that, but that's default. So, throwing a bit of shade there. So at that point, I realized, okay, so Google's answer to the iPhone is basically not that great, a lot of flaws, and in a lot of ways, from my view, kind of a mock of an old version of iOS. So maybe my next phone should be an iPhone. Maybe I should go back. Maybe I should see like how good it is if anything's changed. So May 13th, I switched back to iPhone, and oh my God, I am never going back to Android. They have absolutely killed this. There's no way I would ever go back to Android. After coming back to this, using this for 10 days, unquestionably the best user experience of any phone on the market. There's so many things I gotta list. Like I said, I care a lot about user experience. I care a lot about aesthetics, stuff that Android users don't really care about, hence why they own Androids. So the user interface is nothing short of incredible. I don't even know where to start. The home screen alone is just so gorgeous. Like, you can put the forehead and chin on the old iPhone design. You got the big forehead and the big chin and the home button. That was getting pretty old pretty quick, so I'm glad they got rid of that. And they totally, you know, I was wondering, well, if Apple gets rid of the physical home button, what are they gonna use as a gesture? They can't like just have a home button on the screen all the time, because Google does that, and Google's always done that. So what are they gonna do? And when I saw that the home gesture is the line across and you swipe up, so smooth. It's just so smooth. To this day, I still don't understand how they do it so well. So smooth. I really don't. And I'm not being biased. Like, you probably think, well, you've used Apple. You're an Apple. No. This is coming from someone who's used Android for the past 3 years and then comes back to Apple because of the lack that Android has. For example, here's like the Messages app. iPhone versus Android. Okay, when you send a message, you type, blah, 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 you type, send it off, the bubble appears. The bubble on Android just appears, it just flashes there. But with this, it forms from the keyboard, sends it off, it has the little spike. Like in photos are so much better, trimming video, like in the Pixel, when you trim a video, it was very skippy. Obviously, it takes way better panoramas. The first time I took a panorama on the Pixel was terrible. It didn't stitch, it didn't do anything. And this is coming from one of the AI leaders of the world, making a phone. You can't stitch a panorama together. Apple's always done great with that. Google Photos has been advertising like crazy, especially in YouTube videos. 1 out of 2 ads that appear is Google Photos. It's selling with Google Photos. It has to do with the storage, free up space, all that on Google. Something to do with Google Photos. Like, I get so many more ads for that now. I wonder if they know that I used to use Android and switched to iOS, and I'm talking mad shit about Google Photos. I don't know if Google or Samsung will ever figure out how to make an ecosystem this good. AirDrop and Messages and all that stuff, it just comes together so well. It feels so premium. This smartphone has drip. Like, depending on how well you know me, I like drip. Go listen to my music. A huge factor, and this is something that, and this is actually kind of how I started making music, is I would use GarageBand on my iPod Touch and record my drums, and then like, cause it has you can get plugins on a music making program on your phone. So that's how I started making music, and then I started using GarageBand on my Mac, and then Logic, and since then it's been history. Like, I have all these versions of Mac applications on my phone ready to use. I just downloaded a bunch of sample packs on GarageBand before I filmed this. I just want to do a little side note. Look at the design of this body. Look at that. When you see like that, this is by far the best smartphone design I've ever seen. Again, not biased against Apple. These are just straight facts, people. You can see the infrared scanner trying to scan a face. And if you guys are wondering, yes, obviously I have a case for it. This is $1,500. I'm not trying to walk around with it, drop it on its front, smashing the front to smithereens. Oh my God, I totally forgot about this. The Pixel 2 did not come with a voice memos app built in. I know. So I downloaded one from the Play Store, and the sound it records in is unbelievably terrible. It sounds like a webcam from 2005. Like, you know those webcam videos where it sounds really, it's not very sensitive to sound around it. It sounds like a really bad phone call. Unbelievable how bad it sounds, and you can't adjust it. It doesn't come with a voice memos app. This is Google's answer to the iPhone. You know what Google's answer to the iPhone is? Go buy an iPhone. If you own an iPhone, there's a good chance that there's at least one person in your circle, an Android user, And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but Android users, most of them are extremely prejudiced against Apple users.
Oh my god, why do you have an iPhone? You just bought it because everybody else buys Apple. That's a $1,500 piece of junk.
They'll always have to like jab at you, not jokingly, like they're serious.
Why did you buy that? Is it because everybody else owns Apple? Do your research. Are you glad you got robbed by the biggest corporation in the world?
The OnePlus 7 just came out, just dropped. I think that the 7 Pro has 12 gigs of RAM. 12 gigs of RAM. 12 gigs of RAM on a smartphone. This has 12 gigs of RAM. No, I'm joking. It has 4 gigs of RAM. That is absolutely insane for a smartphone, and especially the price. Like, that's a really good price for anything that has 12 gigs of RAM, especially a smartphone. But it's not an iPhone. The Samsung Galaxy S10 has probably the smallest notch in the industry, dual cameras, but it's not an iPhone. Back to the OnePlus 7, it has no notch, it has a little camera that comes up, but pretty much as much screen as you technologically possibly can get in 2019, but it's not an iPhone. It starts at, what, 600 and something odd dollars Canadian, 400 US, but it's not an iPhone. But it's not an iPhone. The OnePlus has all these things, 12 gigs of RAM, no notches, a sweet little selfie camera that pops up, 3 lenses, but it's not an iPhone. The Huawei's canceled. There's so many phones out there that can do that in terms of hardware and software, can do so much more, but it's not an iPhone. See, what people don't get, what Android users fail to understand is how well iPhones work. Android has actually gotten less customizable over the years, especially the Pixel. It's terrible. What separates iPhone from everything else is that the software specifically and the body design, all that, that's designed by actual designers, not engineers. Apple has this extra level that says, we're gonna make this run really well, and we're also gonna make it look as freaking good as possible. That's what separates Apple from everybody else. See, Android looks really engineered, like you can tell. It doesn't look that great. They don't focus a lot on research and development, what looks nice, what doesn't. That's what Apple does, and that's what they're good at, and that's what I prefer. It really is all about personal preference here. If you want voice memos, don't buy a Pixel 3. Being that I'm an artist, I'm a creative, this is the phone that creatives have. It just is. Apple has always developed products for creators because they just work so well, like nothing else. Like, don't get me, I'm not saying I hate this. 99% of it is incredible, but there's a couple things that I wish Apple could have easily added that to the software, but they didn't. Yeah, you can't search for emojis. Well, you actually might be able to do that on Gboard. I haven't tried that out yet, but I want to be able to do it on the iOS keyboard. Oh yeah, you can't rotate certain apps. Like, you can't rotate Facebook, you can't rotate Twitter into landscape mode. The most annoying one by far is you can't rotate YouTube. So you're watching a video like this on YouTube, and to exit you have to turn it back and just find stuff. That is super annoying, especially like, say if you're like on the couch like this and you're scrolling through it, this is of course something that Apple users have always complained about. In multitasking, there's no clear all button. You have to manually clear each one. I'm yawning literally as I'm explaining it. Just to like make it even, there are definitely some things on here that I wish existed, but they don't. It's okay, because like I said, 99% of this is bang on. So I hope you all got a lot out of this. My main purpose for wanting to make this was to pretty much put you in my shoes as much as possible, because I'm not a tech reviewer, right? Like, tech reviewers, like, these mans are like constantly switching from iOS to Samsung to Google to all that, so they're totally familiar. I thought it was really cool that I can tell my story about being on Android for 3 years and coming back to iOS and how I feel about it. I hope if you're in the market for a new phone and you're stumbling, you're on YouTube stumbling across videos on Android versus iOS. Okay, that about wraps up the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, much appreciated. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment how I did. I haven't made a YouTube video for a while, but yeah, share your thoughts. Share your views on iPhone.
iPhone is terrible. My
new mixtape Aces is out everywhere June 21st. Black Book featuring Kelsey Crow is out May 31st. So that about does it for me. I'm gonna stop talking. I hope I helped you decide on a phone, and I'll catch you in the next one. Holiday out!